Thank you so much for making time to join us today on Aging While Black Live. Uh,
Hmm.
it is great to connect with you and to just spend a few moments talking with you about the important work that you're doing. And so, welcome.
Thank you, Raymond. I am honored to be here. I was looking forward to joining you on the podcast. I think that our first meeting and conversation, there was something synergistic about that I think that brought us to this point. So
Uh,
I'm very honored to be here.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you. And so we begin each of these experiences by just reminding those who share with us now or those who will join and watch this later that Aging While Black is a multifaceted platform that elevates the voices of Black elders by amplifying their stories, perspective, and experiences. We generate collective learning and collective action around the systemic inequities that are faced by aging Black people and co-create policy-driven and people-driven responses for a better day and tomorrow. And as I've already shared, I'm excited to be joined by Mr. William Hamer. Uh, Over the last few days, William, we have shared a bit about your work to the folks who are part of our community. But how would you introduce yourself to the Aging While Black community?
All right. Well, I think that what I would do is give you a little personal backdrop. I think that might be helpful. I'm talking with you as I understand you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm here in Central Harlem, New York, and I'm a gentleman who was born and raised in Harlem. I have raised four young African American men who are all now grown and out of college and thriving in their careers. I lead a very active lifestyle. Uh,
Mm.
I tend to, I swim, I run, and I try to do all of the physical things that I enjoy. But these things have been a way of life for me. So I continue those things, which I think have helped me to age, okay, not without some challenges, right? Because as you age, you're going to hit the challenges. I'm a great music lover. I'm a guy who is from Harlem. I define myself as a straight up bebop jazz man, right? Still, that's my music of choice. I also have a real strong interest and affinity to the African Afro-Cuban music. So, those are my two genres, and um, and I also might I like to think I can dance too, right? So, you know.
That's something that we will certainly ask others for their perspective on it. But I'll just say to you,
Mhm.
based upon that introduction of yourself, there's a lot that you and I should talk about, and we'll talk about after
Okay,
time together today.
that's wonderful. I look forward to it.
So, what does the concept? You and I talked and have had a couple of wonderful conversations, and you've heard me say, and you've had the opportunity to read the words "aging while black." What does that concept bring to mind for you?
Well, I'll tell you my first reaction. I think that that's how I would begin. And so when we met and I heard about aging while black, and then you sent me some of the literature. I sat back and I read and absorbed the literature, and I thought it was just really an opportunity for me as an individual to reflect back and take a look at some of where I've been and some of what I've done, some of my accomplishments. So it was a very reflective, opportunity. And so aging while black, can mean a whole slew of things, right? I mean, it's about your health, it's about wellness, it's about having joy in your life, having love in your life, having a spiritual guidance. So aging while black, really resonated with me, and as we talk going forward, I'm going to speak to one of the concepts in terms of all of the literature that I read that just knocked me out, right? And I'm not going to mention it right now because I want to bring it in later on in another segment. But it's just something that I want to just speak to you and your community about, and how it resonated with me.
Well, thank you so very much for that wonderful tease, and we'll hold it in. But what I heard as you talked about what aging while black as a concept brought up for you, uh, is that it is about the holistic experience. It's about all the elements that have gone into your journey to
That's
where
correct.
you are at this point in life.
That's
Uh,
right. It's the whole ball of wax, as they
yeah,
say. Aging while black. I mean, if we get to this point in our lives, we should have some moments of reflection, and we should have an appreciation for some of the challenges and the barriers and things that we've had to overcome. One of the things I would also say is that, um, we have to kind of use the knowledge and understanding that we've gained over these years to keep ourselves centered.
right.
And keeping ourselves centered means to me also continuing to keep our eyes wide open, because we are at a point right now, but based on the data and based on what we hear in terms of aging and older adults, we might be around here a little bit longer.
Yeah,
So we've got a few more miles to travel, and that I think is important for us to keep in mind, that we're doing that traveling in the context of a society that hasn't always been supportive, and we still need to understand that racism and discrimination is still very active and alive, and I think it's important that we keep our heads you know um, held high, and as we age, and continue the muscle, because I think aging is something that's going to continue causing us to have to meet challenges and barriers, right?
right,
And in some cases, we're going to just have to muscle through. But what's important is to also have that support system, have a community. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, later in this discussion. Have a village, right? That is responsive and embracing.
right. So tell us, as you have been about doing many of the things that you just described, tell us about the Harlem Advocates for Seniors.
Okay, so the brief spiel, right? It is We started out back in 2011 as a coalition. We became a full non-for-profit organization back in 2016, and we came together in response to some issues that were going on here in New York, particularly in Harlem. And myself, along with many senior center directors, stakeholders, church leaders, came together, and we felt at that point in time that we needed to have what we called a voice at the table, that there were decisions being made about services and programs in our community. And when we looked up at who was sitting around that table, we didn't see any of us. And, Harlem, and I'm not sure about other communities, but I would imagine it applies to other communities, tended to be a reactionary community, right? We weren't always out in front on the issues, but when something happened or threatened us, then obviously everybody would jump.
Right,
And so we said, we need to stop being reactionary. We need to figure out a way to be up in the loop, to be able to have some conversation, and to be at the table and to represent and make sure our voices are heard. And so we came together as a group, and we continued that work. And over the years, yeah, part of the work that we did was, not only were we advocating on issues, but we were also providing program support and services. The unique thing that we carved out for ourselves is that we're not a senior center. We're an older adult organization. And we also looked at the data, and we understood something about our community, and we realized that most of our older adults don't go to senior centers. Okay. And so if we wanted to do something, we needed to figure out a way how we could reach them, right? And so we carved out a model of taking services to where the people live. And in doing that, we started partnering and connecting with tenant associations. And we also began to work with building managements. And so we were able to take services, everything. I mean, some of the services that are in the senior, we do almost some of the same things that the senior centers do, but we do it on site at different locations in the Harlem community. And that found, and for us, that was a winning strategy, right? Because we were able to tap into some funding. I mean, we're still prospecting and still growing out our work, but we right now operate at currently about 4 locations in Harlem, where we do everything from fitness, exercise, educational workshops. We do trips, social cultural activities. We do trips and excursions, um, and we do that right there in our community. And so that's what Harlem Advocates for Seniors has been doing. We continue to do that, and we continue to want to grow our work.
So let me make a couple of remarks. What you described early on, the language that we use in metromorphosis, which is kind of the parent of this conversation. And it's not original, far from original to us, but it is the difference between a moment and a movement. So very often we get caught up in moments. Something happens and it excites us, and,
Hmm.
and we get all riled up or motivated until another moment happens.
That's correct.
And moments don't change things, movements do. And so what the Harlem Advocates for Seniors became about was building a movement rather than being focused on a moment.
Right.
Uh,
I like that description. Yeah, that really resonates, and that's exactly what we're about. You
the
know.
other thing that I, consistent with the language of Aging While Black, and I just want to lift it up as the work that you are doing, you and the folks with you are doing, as being the personification of it, is that there's a policy-driven response. You looked at tables where decisions were being made and recognized that your voices were absent, and so you engaged in the policy making, the decision making as a response, but there was also the people driven response. You
Hmm.
started going where the people were and engaging the people. And so for those of who would look at the language of Aging While Black, I would just say, here is in part what it looks like in real practice,
In real time. Yeah.
real time.
Real
So
time.
you recently undertook a really, I believe, a really important effort in a community survey.
Right.
Uh, just a few kind of guiding questions. Why'd you do it? What did you learn? And
Hmm.
was there anything that surprised you? And so,
Well,
why'd you do it? What'd you learn? And what surprised you?
so we had a very unique opportunity. We did the survey at the request of a major foundation that actually came to us because they wanted to establish and replicate a program that had existed in Harlem some years ago. That program, because of various challenges, ceased to exist, but this foundation wanted to do this program again. And they came to me and they said, "Hey, we would like to establish a Harlem, NORC program, neighborhood naturally occurring retirement community program for the Harlem community. Would you be interested in taking that on?" And they came to us because they had gotten word about the work that we were doing. Our name was resonating within the arena, and they wanted to do something in Harlem. And so they came and said, "Hey, we are prepared to put some money into this endeavor. But what we need you to do is we need you to, there's 2 phases. Phase one is we need you to collect the data, assess what the issues, needs, and concerns are of Central Harlem older adults, right? Capture that data, and then do an outcome report that basically targets what it is that older adults are saying about their issues, needs, and concerns. The second phase of that would be an implementation of a program that would be targeted to some of the outcomes that were expressed by the community. In other words, this is what the community is saying. Let's develop and design a program that basically speaks to and addresses some of those issues. The other side of that is that when we get to phase two, we will also be engaging those same constituents in the design and implementation of the program. So it won't be like, just, a couple of people. We will get them together. We'll do some focus groups and we will talk about, what the needs, issues, or concerns are based on the data, and we'll design a program. Um, we are still doing the survey. The target of the survey, so happens we when we started out with the survey, our target was to do about 500 surveys, right, or more, right, which is a good number. We're right now at a close to 400, and that's a really good number from the researcher's point of view. But we were able to talk to the foundation to extend a little bit. So we are going to run the survey straight through December, maybe mid-January, and then we'll shut it down. And hopefully we'll have somewhere near 500 surveys. So that's why we did it. What we expect now, you've been in the business for a long time. I can, and so have I. So, I mean, there's not a lot that really is going to leap out and surprise me. You know what I mean? It's not that I know everything, but
When
but
you know your community, you know your community.
you know your community, you know what some of the issues are. You've walked the walk, you've talked the talk. But the beauty of doing this kind of comprehensive survey is that if something does pop out, it will be something very different, something that really takes us like, oh, that's something we didn't even think about. That's something that we weren't even focusing much of our resources or energies on. And if that does happen, then that's the purpose of the survey, right? To help us to see what's being said and to go that and to focus, the resources and the energy. So the survey is still ongoing.
Thanks.
We will be putting out a report. I would just say to you on this particular program that we expect to report out sometime late January, maybe early February. And it is a public document. Be more than happy to share that with you and your
We,
people there. So you
yeah,
can see the report with all the bells and whistles and see what folks up here in Harlem are talking about.
we certainly look forward to circling back on that again. And I'm just thankful for, in the richness of this conversation, how the concepts that are beneath Aging While Black are just, again, being lived out, William, in the important work that you and
Hmm.
those who work with you are doing. And so
Right.
this notion of elevating the voices of Black elders uh,
Absolutely.
is certainly at the heart of what you're doing. Uh, as you have done this work over time, and as you continue to do it, what concerns you most about Black aging in Harlem, and what gives you hope?
I guess one of the biggest, there are many concerns, say that, but one of the biggest concerns is that we strive and we are committed to, as part of our mission, we want to help our Black elders and older adults to just do a couple of very simple things or have access to a couple of very simple things. One, we want you to age gracefully. We want you to be able to age in place and stay at home and be able to stay and live in your community. And we want you to experience and continue experiencing joy and laughter and the richness of life, even while you go through all of the challenges, and that's something that I talk about all the time, is that, we talk about Medicaid, we talk about, rent, we talk about all of the issues that are important, health disparities, right? We got to deal with that. But in the midst of all of that, we need to also be mindful that we need joy and we need laughter. We need the opportunity to engage and stay connected with other people. So that's one of the things that we do. And what gives me hope is that I know that there's a whole cohort of people here in the community who have similar thoughts. And one of the biggest hopes that just happened not too long ago is Harlem. Well, New York State right now is one of the five states, I believe, that is working on what they call a master plan for aging. I think there are only five states in the country who have actually engaged in that work. New York is currently engaged in that work. Um, the person, it is being headed up by Governor Hochul and the Department of Health. But our local senator, the esteemed Honorable Cordell Clear, who now sits in the state, Senate, is also the chair of the statewide committee on aging. So
Mm,
she's in the unique position, not only statewide to drive policy and information and legislation, but she's a Harlem resident. And so she is very active and very visible in our community. We talk to her often, and she takes information, and so that gives me hope that this master plan will somehow get rolled out, and it will include elements that are specific to the Harlem Black community and the community in general, as well as and throughout the state, right? Because
right.
although we focus in on Harlem, I mean, folks are aging all over the country, all over the world. Yeah.
So thank you for that. So the first pillar of Aging While Black is this notion of recalibrate the village. And in that pillar, we highlight the need for a comprehensive and strategic redesign of the systems, the organizations, and the institutions that support Black life and Black aging in particular. What does that look like in Harlem? This idea
Well,
of
I,
recalibrating the village.
yeah, I would. So let me just give you just a quick context. So I and my organization and a number of people here very early on were involved in the age-friendly movement. Right, that's a national movement. It's actually an international movement to create age-friendly cities. Um, I was really blessed and pleased back in 2013, 2014. I was one of the delegates from New York, from Harlem, that attended the first international conference on age friendly cities in Dublin, Ireland. And Dublin, Ireland at that time was considered one of the top age friendly cities. So I think, when we talk about Black, we talk about aging while Black. We also are talking about age-friendly cities that will help to accommodate not only Black folks, but others. But our specific issue is Black. So what does that look like? That means that our communities have to be age-friendly, right? There has to be a conscious decision and determination to create cities that are accommodating to folks who are Asian. Everything, simple things. Like one of the things we did here in Harlem some years ago is we did what we call traffic calming measures. So we have some boulevards up here in Harlem that used to be speed zones. At some point, we said, "Oh no, we and in a 2 year period, there were like 6 or 7 fatalities, and of those 6 or 7 fatalities, like all of them, I think 7 or 8 of them were over 62 years old, right? So we said we got to calm that down, and so we started the movement, right? Harlem Advocates for Seniors, along with other folks. We said, "Hey, let's do something about that." And you would think that everybody would be on board with that, okay? That this is something good for the community, and with people, we don't need this, right? So let's do something to slow down recalibrate the lights, so people can't just speed 10 blocks down the thoroughfare. Do you know we got so much pressure because we had to run into and we got challenged by what we call, and that's nothing wrong. Everybody has their ballywick, the preservationists, right? The preservationists were like, "Oh no, this is Seventh Avenue in Harlem. You cannot touch this because it has historical significance. It is something that we don't want people to change." So you run into those kinds of challenges, right? So we had a battle, right? But we finally won out. We won out, through strong advocacy, elected officials, schools, churches, and we were able to get that street recalibrated, redesigned, right? That was now what we would consider a more age-friendly boulevard.
Yeah.
Everything from, we want our communities to be walkable communities. We want our older adults to feel safe. We want them to be able to walk down the block, right? Not only feeling safe and free from crime, but we don't want them tripping over concrete, cracks in the sidewalk, and if Miss Mary, who is 90 something years old, wants to get out and take a walk, she may only be able to walk a block or two, right? And so why can't we put some benches on the sidewalk so that she could sit and take a breather, before she walks the next 2 blocks, so recalibrating the village to me means really creating systems, right? Creating, designing things. I'll give you a good example, and then we'll move on. But when I was in Ireland, this was an international conference, and they had a thing talked about housing. And I was so impressed that in Spain they were doing things with modular housing that was
Yeah.
specifically being built so that as you aged in that house, they could retrofit that house, without too much expense, right? So
Right.
that you didn't have to walk up and down, flights of stairs, right? So that was a conscious design, decision, to do that. And so I think we need to do more of that here in America. I think we need to do it more in our communities. But in recalibrating the village, and I'll say this, that first of all, we have to kind of reintroduce the village concept. I think we've
Yes.
lost some of that in some places, even in Harlem. Everybody says Harlem is a village. Well, it is a village. We like to think it's a village. We've lost some elements of that village, and
Yes.
we need to kind of recapture that. And then once we can recapture that, we then maybe we can recalibrate it. But there are a lot of folks today who don't really see Harlem as the village that it used to be many years ago. You know.
And that is true of many communities, especially those that have rich histories as it relates to being incubators for Black life. That's certainly true across the country. I
Hmm.
do want to just lift up something, and then we'll head to our wrap up. At Aging While Black, we are for quality of life and aging for everybody. We just want to make certain that we raise up a priority of Black elders. But we are not exclusionary in any way.
Hmm.
Uh, we just want to make certain that we show some love for Black elders.
I love it. I love it. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
We know, we're not
Oh,
trying to exclude anybody, but
no. But by the same token, we want to make certain that we are
absolutely,
not excluded.
absolutely, that's okay, and that's okay.
Yeah. So if money wasn't a concern, what's one thing you would do that you don't do currently, William?
If money wasn't a concern for me, let me just say this: there are a couple of things I would do. Right, I'm just gonna just jump right out of the box here and say, so I would want to do and put in place systems and resources that would stabilize housing for our older adults. I want our older adults to be in stable living environments. I want them to be free from an eviction. I
Hmm.
want them to not have to fear whether or not the landlord's going to kick them out or the rent's going to go sky high and then all of a sudden they've got to go. So I would want to figure out a way to stabilize our older adults in housing and free from eviction. And then I would also want to make sure that we develop programs, support systems, so that every basic need of our older adults was met, right? Basic stuff: food, never have to worry about food, never have to worry about water, never have to worry about shelter. Okay. Once I was able to do those things, then I would just go off the top and try to put together a robust program of social cultural engagement, including trips, opportunities to travel, community exchanges, interstate, interborough, intercommunity, bringing people together, just as I'm talking to you in Baton Rouge. I'm here in Harlem. What would it be like to have a whole cohort of folks from Harlem roll down to Baton Rouge, and be embraced by folks that they could meet. And then you come up to Harlem. In other words, this goes back to my concept of joy and active living, quality of life. Let's give it to them. Let's give it. They deserve it. And let's make something like that happen.
So my words in response to that very briefly are, let's build something together, brother.
I hear you. I'm on board, man. We can build. I had this vision of having interstate exchanges, not conferences, right? Because I'm not talking about conferences. I'm not
yeah.
talking about no academic conference. I'm talking about just bringing people together from different walks of life, in different Black communities,
So
lifting each other up.
So one of the things that we hope to do with Aging While Black is to be a platform for aspirations and agendas such as the one you've outlined. And so my last question to you, and to wrap it up, and I'm so grateful for this time to just share with you. And so Aging While Black seeks to be a catalyst for movement building around these three pillars of recalibrating the village,
Hmm.
embracing innovation and rapid change, and leaning into Sankofa, this wisdom of the
See,
elders being real. What's your best hope for such a
so
movement?
so see, you stole that little thing I was trying to preserve towards the end of my presentation, because I think, and I need to say to you, Raymond, and you folks in Baton Rouge and all over, that term to me, lean into Sankofa,
Yeah.
is profound. I mean, when I read that, I said, leaning into Sankofa, leaning into our history, leaning into where we've been. I said leaning was the appropriate term, right? Because we need to lean into our history, our background. We need to see what it was all about. We need to learn and educate ourselves on it. But we don't necessarily need to extrapolate everything from back then, because it may not work today. But we need to be connected to that. And that term, leaning into Sankofa, I think you should market that. I think you should. I think that is just and it also had an emotional component, because I sat back and I said, wow, leaning into Sankofa, right? Leaning into our history, leaning into our ancestors, leaning into what came before us, and then using those elements and that strength to keep marching and keep moving. Um, so that was the term that I didn't want to put it way up front. That,
Yes, I appreciate that.
yeah. So I think that you got something there. But I think you need to keep doing what you're doing, Raymond. I mean, you've just connected from Baton Rouge to Central Harlem. And I know that you've got connections in other states, and you've got a broad platform. And there are people who are on this call listening who may become part of this effort. But I think, keep promoting what it is that you're doing. I'm going to be using your term. Hopefully, it's okay. Lean into Sankofa. Because I think I need to tell people about that. And I've already shared a lot of your work with my colleagues here, in Harlem, and also in New York, because we have a range of network. We have a network range that covers all of the five boroughs here in New York. Um, but I think you do. I think you're onto something here. Uh,
So William, we are trying to build a movement. We're not trying to be a thing. We're trying to build a movement. And I am grateful for the way that you have been open to that movement. I certainly, as I have privately, want to publicly just welcome and invite you to be a part of building,
mhm.
because we don't have it all figured out.
Right.
We
Right.
can learn together, we can build together. And so I thank you for your openness. I look forward to building with you, to being connected with others in your network as we connect you with others in our network who could learn and benefit from the important work that you and your team are doing in Central Harlem. And so, William Hamer, I am grateful for your time. I am grateful for the wisdom that you've shared in this platform. I'm excited that we're going to be able to memorialize this and have it on our YouTube channel where we
Hmm.
can point people back to it for years to come.
Well, Raymond, let me just say, as I said in my opening comment, I'm honored. I am so thrilled to have had this opportunity to talk with you. Like I said, there's a synergy here, and I think that you can count me in. You can count my organization in. As you build your movement, let's stay connected. Let's talk. Let's see what we can do collectively together, and maybe also serve as a catalyst to continue to bring other people on board. But this is exciting, right? To me.
This conversation has been exciting, my friend, and I look forward to what the future holds. And so, William Heyman, thank you so much. Blessings to you and the work of the Harlem Advocates for Seniors. And I know that you will continue making a difference for years to come.
Thank you, Raymond,
Thank
and
you.
it's been my pleasure.
Have a great day.
And you do the same. Bye bye.
Bye.